Pesachim Daf Yud Gimel, first email comes from Rabbi Yehuda Brecher, amazing email. He says, this is a long lost roommate. You see, I'm finding my old friends from Shomer Munim, Altachav from Farako and Chaim Berlin. I get so much enjoyment watching you and your shir. Hakadosh Baruch Hu should give you continued koyach to be Marbitz Torah. Rabbi Yehuda Brecher. Another one from Dovi Glug from Borough Park. He's 14 years old. He says, my father introduced me to your shir. I watch it on Torah anytime. Your shir is amazing. I love every minute of it, whether it's the beginning of the shir or when you throw in a pshat or when you sing a song. It's amazing chevra and achdus that the shir has, etc., etc. Thank you very much, Dovi Glug. So in the mission we had three-way argument. When do you have to stop eating chametz? According to Rabbi Yehuda, you stop eating chametz 2 hours before the da'erais. In other words, you can't eat into the 5th hour. According to Rabbi Meir, only 1 hour before bir chametz. And according to Rabbi Gamliel, depends. Chulin is like Rabbi Yehuda, it's 2 hours. If it's truma, it's 1 hour. And Rav Paskins, like Rabbi Yehuda, they have to give it a 2-hour buffer. Isn't the halach like Rabbi Meir? Like the following Mishnah, you have a Mishnah stam that seems like Rabbi Meir. The Gemara says no, that's actually Rabbi Gamliel. But we can't pass him like Rabbi Gamliel because Rabbi Gamliel is not a machriya. He's not the deciding shita over here. Typically, when you have, let's say by us, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda arguing, you have a third shita that is machriya and says it's like this one. That's not what happened here. Rabbi Gamliel said something that the other two never mentioned. He spoke about truma, so the halacha cannot be like Rabbi Gamliel. Therefore, the halacha remains like Rabbi Yehuda. Another lashon in Rav is that Rav learned it from the halacha like we have this year. Pesach falls out. Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos. So when do you burn the chametz? You can't make a fire on Shabbos. You do it on the 13th. And the Brisa says you burn everything, suffik truma, suffik regular truma, tahira, everything gets burnt, and stop eating at the end of the 4th hour. That's exactly like Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara says no. In fact, it's possible like we paskin like that Brisa was Rabbi Yehuda Ishbar Shaisa, that you make the fire and you burn it on the 13th. But exactly what time you do so, that we don't paskin like him. There's an argument between Rabbi Yehuda Bar Soisa and Chachamim. Chachamim tell Rabbi Yehuda Bar Soisa, how can you burn regular truma? Perhaps you'll find the kain. He says, we searched everywhere. Perhaps you'll find the kain that's coming from out of the city, from within the tchumis, behind the wall. We're not choishish for that, says Rabbi Yehuda Bar Soisa. If so, if you're choishish for such far-fetched things, shouldn't you be concerned that maybe Eliyahu Hanavi will come and teach us and say, this piece of suffik truma is not a suffik? Well, we're not choishish for that. But Chacham say, you know why we're not choishish? Because Eliyahu Hanavi cannot come. We have a promise. He won't come Erev Shabbos and Erev Yontif when Klal Yisrael is busy preparing for Shabbos and Yontif. There's once a story that Rebbe Paskind, there was a guy watching somebody else's saddlebags, and mice made a hole in it, and chametz started pouring out of it. So he asked Rebbe early in the morning. He said, "Can I sell it?" It was Erev Pesach, and Rebbe said, "No, don't sell it yet." Finally, when it came to the 5th hour, he said, "Sell it now." Perhaps we could bring a raya that Rebbe passing like Rebbe Yehuda, that the 5th hour he stopped eating it, and therefore he said, "Sell it to a guy." So the Gemara, no. Maybe he said, "Sell it to a Jew." Who said this? Rabbi Yosef. But we know that Rabbi Yosef, when he got older, he forgot his learning, he got sick. And one of his Talmidim reminded him, he said, look, you yourself said that Rebbe was passing like Rabbi Yehuda, and he said, sell it to a guy, not to a Jew. Another halacha is that the one watching somebody else's chametz cannot sell it to himself, because people might accuse him of stealing. V'yisim nekim, you have to be clean. Even if you're not doing something wrong, if other people think so, it's usher. That's the reason why someone in charge of tzedakah should not be pirate. He shouldn't switch out the rusty coins for silver coins. People might be choshesh, do it with other people. If you're in charge of tamchui food, don't buy it off the tzedakah, sell it to somebody else. V'yisim nekim. Chachamim themselves say, if you're watching somebody's fruit and they start spoiling, you're not allowed to sell it. But that's only when it's a typical amount of spoil. But if it's a rapid spoil, then you could go sell it. So too when it comes to chametz. Since in a few minutes it's going to be Pesach and the chametz is going to be completely usher, go ahead and sell it. Try to save as much as you can for the owner. That's hashavas aveda. When it came to the Har Bayis, the Mishnah says you put 2 breads of taida, and based on how many breads Klal Yisrael knew when they could continue eating chametz. If there's 2 breads, they're allowed to eat chametz. If there's only 1 bread, they stopped eating chametz, but they didn't have to do streifas chametz. No bread, that shows them that it's time to burn the chametz. Where do they place these breads? We thought it's al gavai staba, on the bench. The Gemara says that's too low, nobody will see it. Al gaga staba, it's like a bus stop. There was a roof to protect you from the rain. Put it on top of the roof that everybody should see it. There's another sheet in the Gemara that instead of using breads, they used 2 oxen that were plowing the fields of Harabais, of Harazaisim. And when you saw 2, that meant you could eat chametz, and when there was only 1, you should stop eating chametz. And when they took away the cows plowing, that meant it's time to burn the chametz. These breads that they put as a signal were puzzle bread. Why is that? You cannot bring a toida on Pesach because the toida consists of 40 breads, 10 of them were chametz. You can't bring chametz on Pesach. Machlok is whether you can bring it erev Pesach because you're causing the bread to go to waste. You're causing kachim to be burnt. So you bring it on the 13th. But the problem is so many people were coming up to be oila regal that they all brought the carbon taida, and there's so much bread going around they couldn't consume it all. So that's why they used two of those breads, pasul breads, as the signal. Rabbi Yani says the bread was kosher. How do you get to eat bread? When you shech the carbon taida, that's when it gets kedushas haguf. When you do the zrika on the mizbeach, that's when you get to eat it. So what happened was they shechted the carbon, but the blood spilled. Rebbe holds that if there are two things, for instance over here, there's the shechita and the zrika. What happens is you get kedushas haguf, but there's no heter. For instance, if you're shechting the carbon on Shavuos together with the bread, and you're supposed to do it l'shma, you did the shechita l'shma, but the zrika shaloi l'shma. What happens is the bread is kaddish and not kaddish. It's kaddish to the point where you can't redeem it anymore, but it's also for you to eat. So the same thing with lechem taida. Therefore, they used this lechem taida on the itztaba, but it was a kosher bread. There's a few other halachas in carbon taida. First of all, as we mentioned, there's 10 breads that are chametz, 30 are matzah. You eat it for a day and a night. The zrika is matter, as we said, to eat the bread. If a person says, this animal is my taida, and these are my breads, if the breads get lost, you can replace the bread. But if the animal gets lost, you cannot replace the taida, because the main thing here is the taida. Have a wonderful day.